Hallo, ek is E.T. Welkom by my kanaal waar ons als saam doen. Buckle up. Today we take a look at Afrikaans diminutives. This is a pretty bulky and sizable video, so I suggest that you get yourself a beverage, something to support you while you watch this video. I have made previous videos about Afrikaans plurals, and I made them in separate parts. If you haven't watched those, or if you are not well versed in Afrikaans plurals, I suggest you go watch those. Learn Afrikaans plurals first. And once you've got a good grasp on that, come back to this and then watch it, and then learn the diminutives. The reason being, I made this video everything all in one, and it's a lot. Afrikaans diminutives are almost as complicated as the plurals. Very slightly, maybe less complicated. But it is, like the plurals, one of the more complicated things about the language, I think. So just keep that in mind. But if you are well versed in plurals and you feel comfortable, then let's just go ahead and do the thing. Diminutives are called verkleinwoorde in Afrikaans. These are the suffixes used to indicate a diminutive in Afrikaans. They are pronounced as follows. The first one, I. The next one, ki, as you've spelled it with a K. So T-J-I-E. And the next one, E-T-J-I-E, are both pronounced as ki and eki, like the one spelled K-I-E, which is also pronounced ki. You don't pronounce the one spelled with a T as chi. It's ki, like a K. And then we've got pi. In this specific case, you have a word ending in a single letter vowel, meaning one letter only for that vowel, and then a consonant. And if that's the case, what you do is you multiply the ending consonant by 2, add another one of those, and after that you add the E. So in the case of the word rok, you have one single vowel, and then after that a consonant. So you multiply K, you will have 2 Ks, and then you add E. Then you get rokkie. Now, if you know the Afrikaans plurals, you'll know that the plural is formed in the same way for rokke, which is double the K and then add a E. Then we have trap, and that becomes trappie, kas, kassie, hef, heffie, and dag, daggie. Now, at the very bottom, you'll see there is, of course, the exceptions, as you well know. The words that end in a single letter vowel, and then you've got L or R or N or M or T or D or B. They have different diminutives. So it's only the other ending consonants that you multiply and then add IE. But I will take you through all of the rest of it very soon. So the previous one, we had a single letter vowel. In this rule, we have a lang klank, which is 2 of the same vowels next to each other. And then you pronounce it as A, E, U, etc. In that case, you will drop one of those vowels and add an IE, the I sound, to the back of the word. So then you will have rook, rookie, stoof, stoofie, plaas, plaasie, aap, aapie, and saag, saagie. What you have to take note of is the pronunciation remains a long sound. So if you have saag, you drop a, you add a IE. The diminutive is still pronounced saagie with a long A, even though you've dropped one and it's spelled with one. It's still pronounced as the previous original word. Right, and then also to keep in mind, there are Afrikaans words that are not diminutives but are spelled with an IE at the end, like donkey. Donkey is simply the word for donkey. It's spelled with an IE, but it's not a diminutive. You still have to form the diminutive of donkey. So just keep that in mind, that there are actually words spelled like that that's not diminutives. Then for this rule, the same exceptions as the previous clip applies, where if these long sounds are followed by one of those consonants given at the bottom of the screen, the rule is different. For words ending in double consonants, you also add an IE, except at the very bottom there are those exceptions for words that end in DT, M, and the ng, the NG sound. So in the next clip, we will look at specifically at words ending in LM and RM. So they change in a different way. So just keep that in mind. Back to the words with the double consonant, you have the word vark, which is pig. That one just gets an IE, varkie. So these are very straightforward. Just add IE. Romp, rompie. Wors, worsie. Stomp, stompie. Bulk, bulky. Bunk, bunky. When a word ends with a M, you add P, except in the case at the very bottom, where the word ends with one single letter vowel followed by an M. If that is the case, then it adheres to the very first rule we looked at, where you multiply the ending consonant and then add E. So remember that. In all other cases ending on M, double consonants, if it has a longer vowel before M, you add P. So then we have wurm, wurmpie, oom, oompie, stroom, stroompie, droom, droompie, arm, armpie, pruim, pruimpie, raam, raampie, and palm, palmpie. For words ending with a D or T, you add ye. Now, in this case, there are pronunciation changes that can often be confusing, and also there are exceptions. So let's take them one at a time. We've got woord. Very simply add ye. Woordkie. Then it becomes woordkie, woordkie. But we tend to skip the D, and that ye at the end is pronounced ki, woordkie. Right, so keep that in mind. Then we've got stad, staitjie. Now, we don't say stadjie, we don't say stadkie, we say stai. So that sound in Afrikaans that you've looked at, that vowel that is I, that I vowel in Afrikaans, when you have an A or a double A and a diminutive, like a ye at the end of a word, like this one that ends in ADJIE, we pronounce that last bit as aiki, aiki. So we pronounce it basically as AAI or AIKIE instead of ADJIE. So it's aiki, not atjie. Aiki. Stad, staitjie. And that doesn't make sense. Not even to me, but you know. Paard, paartjie. Hond, hoinkie, hoing. Why? I just thought of that. We don't say hond, hondkie of hondje. It's winky, wing, wing. Whoa, I've lost the plot. Winky. So I don't even know, can't even begin to explain what happens there. It's winky. So there's no D. You don't pronounce the G. You go for wing and then ki. So just anything remotely similar will also be pronounced in that way. Then we've got pat, and that one changes. You add an A. So it's one of the very few ones that is this kind of exception. Pat, pai, ki. So 2 A's and then pai, ki. Right? Then we've got kat, kai, ki. Same thing, pronounced like AI and then ki, kai, ki. Put, poiki. So again, it's like OOI sound in Afrikaans. Poiki. And then pot. Poiki. No. So we've got poot, boykie. And then we've got pot, and that one's also pronounced boykie. Boykie and boykie. Same pronunciation, different spelling. And then we've got plot, plaiki. So I think when it comes to diminutives, the pronunciation, never mind the spelling, but the pronunciation in these cases are a little bit of a problem. It's a bit of a struggle. You remember that very first rule we took a look at? The one with the single letter vowel and then followed by a consonant? Well, this is the rest of it, in a way. These are some of the exceptions. So this is specifically for single syllable words. Only single syllable words. And they end with specific consonants. So it's also single letter vowel in a single syllable word ending with or on one of these consonants. So that would be L, R, N, M, or B. What you then do is you form the plural first of the word. So you do not just multiply the last consonant. You form the plural first, and then you add ki, pronounced with a K, spelled with a TJ. Right? So ki. So it becomes kar multiplied to the plural form. So kar, and then you add ki. Kariki. And when you pronounce the plural of kar, it's kar. So that last E is pronounced as an Afrikaans I. When you form the plural, it's kari. Then that last E is pronounced as an IE vowel E. And then ki. So kari, kari, ki. Kariki and kar when it's the plural. And that goes for the same of all of these that's multiplied, or all of these that's plural formed first and then added ki. Plan, planiki. Rol, roliki. Ram, ramiki. Drom, dromiki. Ster, steriki. And lastly, rop, robiki. Now, I say it that way because I've never ever used robiki in my entire existence. Every time I see a seal, because this is the word for seal, I call it klein rop of grote rop. So small seal or large seal. I've never said the robiki. It's just weird. This is another mouthful. Many, many rules in one change, if you will. So you're looking at words that end in a long sound, a lang klank, and one of those consonants, so L, R, or N. Or in the case of multi-syllable words that end in a single letter vowel and one of those consonants, L, R, or N. Or in the case of words that end with a vowel, any of the vowel sounds in Afrikaans, right? So we have many 1, 2, and 3 letter vowels. Go watch the vowel videos if you haven't. But not in the case of a letter that ends with a vowel where there's an accent on the vowel. So we will get to that later. So non-accented words that end in vowels, or the ending vowel doesn't have an accent, they will also change in this way. So this is a lot. You've got steal, steelkie. So the change is simple. You just add ki, spelled as TJIE. So that's simple. But to remember which ones change, that's a little bit of a mouthful. So we've got veer, veerkie, steen, steenkie, tafel, tafelkie, adder, adderkie, pada, padaikie. Now in pada, there's no accent on the A. You don't pada, right? It's just pada. So that's why it still changes in this specific way. Stool, stoelkie, soon, swinkie. This is one of those where the pronunciation isn't sunkie, it's swinkie. Just like that other word, which I can't remember which one it was now, but that I just said to you in the previous clip. Oh, hond, winkie. Now, soon, swinkie. It's also that winkie change in pronunciation that happens. Then we've got tuintjie, kudu, kudukie. Kudu is a bok. It's a deer. Kraai, kraaitjie, by, bytjie, and leeu, leeuwtjie. You've got those words that end with an accented vowel. Then you also have loan words from other languages, and a lot of the times it's from English. And then you've got also individual letters. For all of those, when you form the diminutive, you use an apostrophe followed by ki. But it doesn't change the pronunciation. So when you speak, no one's going to know whether there's an apostrophe or not. It's only for writing. So we've got skadu, skadetjie, foto, fotootjie, and then we've got ski, skietjie, ma, maakie, pa, paakie. And then we've got mama and papa. Those are the longer versions of ma and pa. They don't get an apostrophe, so I just put them in there so you can see mamaitjie, papaitjie, and mamaitjie and papaitjie. That last A is pronounced I. Mamaitjie, papaitjie when you say them, but not in the case of the accented ones. The accented ones, maakie, paakie, that A is still pronounced as an R. And then we've got radiootjie, and the radio is a borrowed word from English to Afrikaans. That's why it gets the apostrophe. And then we've got tvtjie or tvtjie, rather, tvtjie. Wow, tvtjie. And then the last one is just a letter, ntjie of ntjie, which applies to all of the letters. The last one, and it's a little bit more of a complicated, or one of the more complicated changes. So we're looking at two things. We've got words ending, all of these words end in the ng sound. I've made a video on that if you don't know the ng sound or haven't watched it. It's the letters N and G next to each other is pronounced ng. Like hung, like slung. It's not n, it's ng. Right, so those change in different ways. We've got the first one where you have a short vowel before the ng, and in that case you add ki at the back of those words. So slung, you've got the one single letter vowel or a short vowel before the ng. It then becomes slangiki. When you pronounce that is pronounced I. Slangiki. So basically it looks like you're forming the plural and then adding a ki. But just say you're adding an I and a ki. Slangiki. Then you've got tong, tongiki, long, longiki, rang, rangiki, and dung, dungiki. And then we get to the other change. And this one also ends in ng, but then you look at multi-syllable words. And in the case of multi-syllable words, the change is very different. You remove the G at the back of the word. So scrap or drop G, and then in its place you add ki with a K. Right, so we've got toering, and that's a two-syllable word. You scratch or drop the G and you add ki. Then it becomes toeringkie. Pronounced still toering ki, but there is no G in the spelling. Then you've got horing, horingkie, faring, faringkie, and lastly, besparing, besparingkie. I left the easiest part for the very end, and that is how do you form plurals of diminutives in Afrikaans. You simply add an S to every single one of them. That is the easiest thing in Afrikaans. So once you've done all the hard work, just add S, and there you've got it, the plural of the diminutive. Okay, so we've done the diminutives. I tried to do this video as concise and condensed as possible because I don't want to make one that drags on forever, but I also wanted you to understand the concepts as well as possible. So I hope I did an okay job. If you still have questions, please let me know in the comment section. If anything is left out or there are things that you don't understand, please let me know. Other than that, have a marvelous day, and I'll see you in the next video.